So starting with your plan. I'm a big planner, and I think that planning is really important to the success of a project. So when I'm selecting my music, because for me it is musical, I'm really mindful of the complexity and the difficulty of the project that we're doing. If it's incredibly nuanced and incredibly complex and incredibly difficult, then that's going to make this exponentially harder. If I wouldn't put a piece in front of my students for live rehearsals and live performance because it's too challenging, I definitely would not do that in a virtual setting where I have less interaction with them. If you have a piece with really strict tempos that you can kind of just stick to a metronome, there's not a lot of lulls, there's not a lot of pauses, then that's going to be a lot easier because they can use an outside source to help guide them. They're not watching you for cues. If it's possible, start with something that they're familiar with, because that way you've already given them some instruction or they already have some basis of knowledge instead of just starting something completely from scratch. The music that we used for all of our stuff is stuff that we would have used in a future concert. If you are starting a brand new piece from the ground up, then you're going to have to allow for some more rehearsal time throughout your process. If you're doing anything public, so pretty much, YouTube, SoundCloud, anything like that, then you're going to need to secure rights. Now, most of the time, most copyright holders are not going to make a huge deal if you put a YouTube video on that has copyrighted material. Most of the time, all they're going to do is put ads on your video that they're going to monetize, which means you can't make money from it, they make money from it, and you can't get rid of their ads. But some have been known to pull videos offline. So it's best if you can secure the rights ahead of time. What that means is you're going to contact the publisher or whoever holds the rights. You're going to request permission to use that piece. And the two big rights that most musicians are going to be looking at are synchronization rights, also called sync rights, and mechanical rights. So synchronization rights are whenever the music accompanies anything visual. So a music video, a concert video, a montage, anything like that. So YouTube videos, you need synchronization rights. Mechanical rights are just the audio and nothing visual with it. So if you're putting it on SoundCloud or something like that, you would need the mechanical rights for that. Now, any of my theater people in the audience know that theatrical presentations are their own set of rights. And so you would have to secure any of those rights as well. If you're doing an original piece, something that you wrote, something that your students wrote, then you don't have to worry about the rights because you have the rights. So that's a way to kind of circumvent that. Also, especially during, quarantine, COVID-19, all of this going on, a lot of copyright holders are being very, very generous and very, very free with granting rights. So, just ask them, do a little poking around on the internet, find out who holds the rights, send them a very kind email asking them, is it possible for me to do this, and lay out the details of your project. And they'll probably say yes. So then so now you know what piece you're doing and you have the permission. So then you send your students resources to help them. So for me, that looks like sheet music. For my modern band students, it might be chord charts or chord and lyric charts. You're going to send them something that helps them practice. So if there's an existing resource, maybe there's an all-state or all-region piece that you're using, and there's already an accompaniment track, and there's already, practice tracks for the performers. Great, send that out. Then if you don't have a recording, then you can make your own. So you can make your own recording performing. You can use MIDI, you can use Sibelius, you can use anything like that. For conductor's notes, director's notes, tell them how you want the piece to be, because don't just assume that they're going to hear the same recording that you hear and think that that's going to be the exact same result at the end of it. So give them some guidance. The less time you're with them in person, the more instruction you have to give them through other means so that there's no confusion. And if you have anything else that based on your group and your piece and your project that you think is going to be helpful, send that to them. It's okay to kind of over communicate and over prepare them. When they're sending all this information back and forth, I found things like Google Classroom to be incredibly helpful. So for my virtual ensembles, I created an assignment in Google Classroom. And this lets me send them the prompt. It lets me send them all of the information behind it. It lets me give them some guidelines, and then they can send them back to me. So it's very helpful. When I'm providing feedback to them, there's a lot of different ways. So sometimes, depending on the group and the project, I might just send them an email with just some little ideas. Okay, this is good, work on this. If it's a project they submitted in Google Classroom, then I'm going to give them comments in Google Classroom, which is great. You can tag a specific video, a specific recording, give comments to that. Your student can respond to the comments. It's a really good back and forth of information. With some of my recordings, I actually gave them a rubric score where I broke down what they did and how it looked. And these 3 excerpts here are actually excerpts that I sent to my students. So that it hasn't been doctored or changed or anything. So there's a lot of different ways that you can give them good quality feedback, that you can really help them understand what they need to work on and what they're doing great at. And it's really important to show them what they're doing great at so they can do that more. For the rubric score that you see right here, this is the rubric that I used, and this is a rubric that I created. It's based loosely on the UIL concert and sight reading rubric. And it kind of lays out sort of what I want them to focus on. We're working on tone, we're working on accuracy, we're working on musicianship. But you don't have to use this rubric. You can use whatever rubric is appropriate for you and your students to kind of give them some feedback. It's amazing how effective a numerical score is for them, because especially if they're doing multiple assignments, you can give them a score for the first assignment, and then they see, oh, my score for the second assignment, it went up. It doesn't really matter what the score was, if it's 1 through 100 or 1 through 10. But they can see, oh, yes, I'm getting better and I'm working. I should keep doing that. And it really gives them some positive feedback.